a motion, I suppose, how we start to nominate somebody for president. And then we can have a vote, and if there's another nomination, we can have another vote, I guess, if that's fine.
I nominate Dan
Can't
Murphy.
hear you, John.
Go ahead, John.
Can't hear you.
His lips said that's okay, but we still can't hear you. If you say move along. If you unmute your phone, we should be able to hear you on the Zoom. Or down at the bottom where the mute microphone is, there's that up arrow. You can select your source.
Anybody else can do a nomination right now. It's
I nominate Dan Murphy for president.
Can you hear me now?
Now
we can hear
Now
you.
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who did the support? Was that you, John? I couldn't hear.
No, that's Jeff.
Jeff. Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Do any more nominations for that position then? All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have the vice president. Do we have any?
I nominate Suzanne Sassick as vice president.
Suzanne Sassick.
A motion and support.
I'll nominate Kelly Leffler.
Okay, do I have a support?
I don't believe we need to have support if it's just a nomination and not a motion.
Okay. So, should we vote on the first nomination then?
So just make a motion, John, or whatever.
No, I don't think we
Well,
make
I
a
thought
motion.
you're supposed to have a discussion before the motion.
Right. Having discussion on that. That's true. So if we can have a discussion then on two nominations, that would be great.
Yes. So just as we had discussed this at the retreat back in December, and yes, everything was not etched in stone, as we say, but this is what was discussed at the beginning of December, and then again towards the latter part of December. That was the direction that we were going to be moving. So I'm not sure what has changed.
If I could, I guess what I'd like to say is, with what we have coming up in front of us, we can't shirk our responsibilities of holding administration accountable, and I'm not saying that. But what we need to be able to do is work with administration to reach a consensus as to getting the kids back into school safely with a meaningful educational experience. If we just do a rush to getting everyone back in school, we might be accomplishing getting people back in, but we need to do it in such a way that it's educating, and we need to build consensus, and that's why I believe Suzanne is probably a better choice. No offense, Kelly.
None taken, John, but I didn't try to rush the decision back to school. It was just making sure we had a plan. And I would like to see kids back in school as soon as feasibly possible, but I don't think that's a reason not to make someone a vice president. And, we have the school strategy plan coming forward, which does happen to be one of my strengths. So, to Suzanne's point about looking at what we need for the district as a whole, strategy is one of my strong suits, and I was looking forward to working with Dan on building the school vision and strategy.
And I'll just add to the discussion. I thought it was when we discussed this, and we discussed it a little bit at length, it was, to move around and give the opportunity where the opportunity was desired, and it was shown that she had the want to learn from that position. And for me at least, that's where we left off. That was the intent, to give her an opportunity to take this role and learn and continue to learn. So that is why I cast my nomination.
Since we're talking about why we think we're a better fit or a good fit for this year, I think one of our key components that we have to really take a hard look at, to be a successful and highly functioning board, and to be that great school district, we need to have great relations. And that's with our administrative team. And And if you ask what has changed, well, there have some key components to that statement that have changed. And there is some work to do, whether you're an officer or not. So moving forward, we need an officer that has that ability, that's in that VP position, to continue that moving. Other board members do have some work to do. I mean, there's some respect and trust issues. And we were trying to avoid having this whole thing on discussion on this to work it out so that this isn't going to be brought up, but that's the fact. And if you look at board membership 101, it is the success of a district is based on how well that board builds those relationships and trust issues with your administrative team. And to deny that things that haven't changed since that last meeting at our retreat, then we even have more work to do if we don't realize that at this point. It's a fact. It's a statement. It's a fact. And so moving forward, we have a lot of work to do and building those relationships. And I don't think that that's the position you want to be in when you're trying to rebuild some things. I've worked hard to build those relationships, and I will continue to work hard to build those relationships. So that's my key.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm unaware that there's trust and respect issues with myself. I mean, Dan and I spoke on Friday, and the only thing that was brought up to me was, you know, that I don't have kids in the school district. And, you know, as far as that goes, you know, my parenting decisions and our decision as a family are separate from my decisions as a board member. So no one called me, no one brought up any issues about trust and respect. So I'm kind of surprised by that comment. I mean, it seems like a direct shot at me, and I've worked very hard with this team and brought forward some pretty good ideas. So, you know, I mean, if that's the will of the team, that's the will of the team. However, I don't think we should say people can't be in positions because they ask tough questions.
So certainly not. I think Kelly's very capable. I've always said that. I still think she's very capable in this position, in any position in that sense. She's certainly one of our brightest ones that's come up in a long time. I think it's going to be coming down more to, at this point, who's going to be a better fit for the coming year with what's coming up, decisions that have to be made, and how well we can work with each other and with the administration. I think Kelly's really capable of doing that. But I think making a change at this time is going to be more difficult than keeping what we have. That's just what I think.
Well, so then can you explain, Dan, why, you know, we have always talked as a board since I've been on here that people shouldn't be in positions for more than a year or two. And, you know, I understand with you, you want to lead this school strategy, and we've always talked about that. But Suzanne's been president or vice president every year I've been on the board, and even prior to that. We do need to give other people opportunity, even if it's not myself, to be in that position. You know, so I just think that at this time we do need to change things up. We're clearly not functioning well, as Suzanne pointed out, and so keeping things the same isn't going to get us a different result.
You know, I think there's another factor in terms of being able to put in time and effort in terms of, and I'm not saying nobody is, but the one thing I know with Suzanne is she has more time and opportunity, especially when Dan is going to need some support as president. I know that is something that works really well in her favor in terms of being able to be available for a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't think this is to say that one person's more qualified than the other, because I think obviously both of them are extremely qualified, right?
I agree.
Without a doubt, they're both extremely qualified. For me, it's just, you know, going back to what we had discussed, and if things have changed, as we said, since a week ago, you know, I think this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to steer things and get them on the right track. So.
Fair enough, but I also point out the fact that you don't have to be vice president to be president. That says it's not a stepping stone that's necessary whatsoever. I wasn't myself my first time I was president. So some of the vice president is who's got the time to be able to step in and help out when I can't, because I won't be able to always do. It's a lot of time commitment to that.
And let me clarify, I have been in this VP role as support for other people, not with the intent of doing anything else. I was in support. We had a transition with some issues a few years back. I stepped back in the role because that was the will of the board. I stepped out. I stepped back to help support another person. That was President Scooter. I worked with you all year with that. I stepped back in again to support Dan because the amount of work that has been put in between Dan and I, Dan more so than myself, but in the last 5 days, I've put close to 25 hours in on phone calls, and Dan's put well more than that. Well, and it is a very, very, especially this time of what we're going through with COVID, it is a bigger commitment than what a VP usually is.
Well, I thought we also thought that you don't have to be the vice president to help Dan out. When you and I spoke at my house and I asked you if you would be supportive of me being vice president, you said yes. And then at the board retreat, when we spoke, we talked about the time commitment of making calls and writing letters, and Dan said he would still lean on you to do that. So
I agree, Kelly. And honestly, this is probably, I had a long conversation with Scooter, and I know you speak with him daily. So you're pretty aware of the things that I have said. And I'll tell you, I have
on vacation, so I don't know how you know.
He told me he talked to you. He told me he talked to you. Just when I talked to him on Sunday, he had already spoken to you. So the fact is, after that last meeting, it's not the questions, it's not the tone, it's the type of a board we want. And I think John agrees with me, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't want to be part of a gotcha board. We want to be part of a team. That's what we've always been. It's what I strive to do. And we took a step backwards last week. It had nothing to do with my leadership position as VP. I sat silent at that meeting because I didn't want it to be the Suzanne Stasic show. So I let it go. Well, that meeting went from bad to worse, and as far as disrespect, not questions, as far as disrespect. Okay, and that's all I'm going to say. Dan, call a vote.
You do want it to be your board. I mean, I don't care, Suzanne, but you are trying to run the show by just telling Dan to call a vote.
Kelly, nothing good is going to come of this discussion. You're countering with everything. You said.
Well, I just don't understand. Like, if you had a problem, I wish you would have called me. I didn't have a problem, but
I don't have enough time to call the whole board. I spent a lot of time on board service.
Well, I know that you called everybody on the board but me, so.
Anybody else have a little more discussion before I call a vote?
I just want to chime in that I am going to abstain from this vote because I feel like being brand new, I haven't been part of the discussions about people and their desires in the role, and I don't know the history of where people have been at, what their skills are at. I really don't feel qualified to chime in here. I'm happy to go along with whatever the will of the board is in this case. So I just want to say it up front.
Sure. Anybody else have any more comments? All right, I think Suzanne was nominated first. If I can say all in favor of nominating Suzanne for vice president, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right. If I read this right, it's 4 and 2 opposed. That nomination stays. Would we like a vote on Kelly then, or is that going to suffice as far as who's vice president?
I think the nays should. I mean, can Scooter and Kelly? Can we assume that the nays were votes for in favor of you, Kelly?
For me, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would be in favor of you doing it, John, and I'd be in favor of Scooter doing it. I know Jeff has said he doesn't have time, and Nadia is new, but I think, based on the conversation at the retreat, we talked about change. So it's not personal against Suzanne. It's more about having change in leadership.
And Kelly, I appreciate that. I just, how do I put it? I know my limitations and I just can't commit to that time and doing that, and my time schedule fluctuates, and I just don't know if I could do it right. And more importantly, sometimes I don't have the temperament for it.
Thanks for that feedback, John.
Next position is going to be secretary. Do I have a nomination for secretary?
I nominate Kelly Loeffler as for secretary.
I'm respectfully going to withdraw myself. I made it very clear at the retreat I do not want to be the treasurer.
This is for secretary.
Secretary.
Okay, I don't want to be treasurer either, or secretary either. I've done it, already. So, Scooter really wants to do it. He put his name forward, and so I would nominate Scooter. That's what he said he wanted to do, and I'm supportive of that.
Sure.
I'll second.
Sure. Any other nominations for secretary then? Any discussion? No, I'm good with that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Now treasurer. Do I have any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate John Gaddy.
Well, and if anybody else,
Choking on my water.
I'm sorry, you said you want to be treasurer. Is that what I heard, Kelly?
That's exactly what I said, John.
Okay,
Can I please
guys,
do that?
No, again, this goes back to what I said during the retreat. If anybody wants this role, then I'm willing to help them out, and I'm willing to be on finance, but I don't feel wed to being the treasurer. If someone else wants to do it, or
And actually, that's another leadership role that, we could, I don't know why the VP ends up being the position that is assumed to be more powerful or whatever. And treasurer, I was treasurer. You don't have to be an accountant to be treasurer. And actually, back in the day, before you were president, they requested you to be treasurer. That used to be one of those precedents that, because I had to be back in the day. So it's a good point, John. It's another role of leadership that is taken on that you don't own. I think you've been on it more than I've been vice president.
and again, I'm willing to help out. I'm willing to do the role of the board. I'm not saying, oh, geez, I don't want to do it. I'm just saying I don't want it to be like this is what John wants, so he gets it. I mean, if somebody else wants it, I'm willing to help them out and mentor, teach, do whatever. I mean, and help them out and serve on finance with them, and But if someone else wants it, please.
Personally, John, you do a good job.
Yeah.
No problem. You know the position well, and you do a good job of it.
And I'd like to say that, I've done both secretary and treasurer, both positions to work within the board. If I had more time, I'd ask to take another stab at it, but I just know my limitations right now, and I think, and I welcome anybody that's interested. If as John is saying, I'd be open to supporting anybody that's interested.
Hearing none. Any more discussion? We'll move on. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, we're going to move on to our organizational items. We have quite a few. Bob, you want to help me out there?
You want me to start? I move that the Grossville Schools Board of Education authorize the superintendent or designate board president, board treasurer, and board secretary to sign checks, contracts, agreements, and purchase